Well, you know what it is. It's time for Hall Talk. For most of you out there, and that's generally geared towards the Pirate fans out there in Pirate Nation, it's somber and bitter today. I want all of you who are watching right now to think about one word: time. At one point in time, Seton Hall men's basketball found themselves on top of the hill. They were no longer the hunters. They were the hunted. They were the Big East champions. Now, only one game away from the midway mark in their Big East schedule, I only have one question to ask you. Do these Pirates have enough time to dance in March? All that and more will be discussed on this week's edition of Hall Talk. Welcome back, Pirate fans. I'm your host, Bryant McInerney. Alongside me is my panel, James Justice and Frank Frasco. Guys, wow. Yesterday was a tough one to swallow. It was a tough one because they held their own the entire game. They went to halftime leading on a fantastic shot by Myles Powell to go into halftime. They played the best game they could, but there were definitely some big problems that came up in the game. That was the big difference. Talk about the game, guys.
The first thing is, you're going into halftime and you're looking good. And then immediately, with 12 minutes remaining in the second half, you let Xavier have an 18-5 run. 18-5 run.
Yes.
You look at the leading scorer for this team, Kadeem Carrington, only having 6 points. 6 points. And then you have to rely on the freshman Powell, who had his, matched his career high with 26 points. 6 for 12 from beyond the arc. He had a hot streak in the second half. No one helped him with that hot streak.
Anything, James?
Yeah, it was one of those games mentioned in a Hall line yesterday. It really was set up for a Seton Hall win. You had the big first half from Myles Powell. You're not going to get that every game. Desi and Kadeem were cold in the first half, but you had such a good performance on the road. I said going in it was a winnable game, but those are the kind of games you got to win. When you're winning on the road at halftime and you're just not able to get it done, we've seen this one too many times this year. They can't win the close game. It was Providence, Marquette on the road, now Xavier, and even Butler at home. It's just been a continuing pattern. And these tournament teams, they win the close games.
You're absolutely correct. Both of you are 100% correct. Kadeem, what are you doing? Close games, big problem. You have something to say, Jim?
Just my one thing is with Kadeem, 0 for 8 from the three-point line. 0 for 8? Mm-hmm. When you're 0 for 5, you just stop shooting from beyond the arc, right? 3 for 13 field goals for Kadeem. When you're the leading scorer, and his averages have obviously gone down. Mm-hmm. Now he's at 16.6 points per game, and right behind him is Desi. And then you're relying a lot on Angel, who's averaging 14.5 points per game.
A man who can't shoot outside of the inside.
If he's your third leading scorer,
exactly.
What do you have to say?
Well, all I have to ask you guys, honestly, was this the staple in the men's basketball team season right now? Is this the game that, if other than them winning the Big East tournament or making a run, was it that now they can't make the tournament with a good record this year?
Bryant, I'm going to say no, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I think that this team definitely has a lot of flaws. We can go into that, but I think I'm just going to look at the schedule right now, and it's something that I don't think a lot of people have talked about, but you look at this schedule right now. I'm not giving this team any excuses, but you look down the stretch, it's exactly how you'd want it, and it kind of makes you think about the first part of the Big East schedule. You're playing all of the top teams in the Big East for the most part that you have left on the schedule at home. I'm looking at Creighton, Nova, and Xavier at home. On the road, you're playing the easy teams, Georgetown, St. John's, and DePaul. Outside of that Butler game, which finishes the year, you're playing 3 bottom teams that you could absolutely win on the road, and all your tough games are at home. It was sort of flipped in the first part of the Big East schedule, and they went 3-6. The Pirates could realistically go 6-3. It's they're going to have to turn things around, but they could go 6-3, and that would maybe be enough to get them into the tournament.
I was thinking exactly what James was just saying. Oof. Exactly. But the most important games coming up is the 3-game homestand against Creighton, Nova, and Xavier. And if they want to make a statement, I'm not talking about records, I'm talking about a statement in the Big East. They have to win at least one, if not 2 out of 3 of
That's
those
a
games.
fact. That is a fact. Well, gentlemen, one of my big things this year is upperclassmen teams win because upperclassmen teams make their points on the charity stripe. They win games. Is that the Achilles heel for this team this year?
I don't think that you can just put it down to free throws. I think the offense just hasn't been efficient this year. I think the loss of Derek Gordon goes beyond defense. I think he was a player that could provide an occasional offensive spark and spread the floor. Right now, there's 3 players on this Seton Hall team that can score the basketball most times on the court, and teams pin in on that, and it's very easy to defend.
Here's my thing. Overall, right now, the team is shooting 61% from the charity stripe, compared to their opponents, which is 70%. And yesterday, they were 6 for 11 in the second half, shooting around 54%. If you look at the game, if they make 3 more free throws, they win. It's called the charity stripe for a reason. I've talked about it this entire season. You've got to make the free throws. But beyond that, you can't rely on Angel Delgado. He's having a tremendous season so far. 14.5 points per game, around 13 rebounds per game. But he's your 3rd leading scorer. He can't score from beyond the paint. I mean, when you have Kadeen, who has not been consistent in the past 5 games, what are you going to say?
It's mind-boggling to me because they obviously have a team that can go places. They have a team that has, they have a background. They have like a resume going on for them this year. They've been there. They've fought their way through everything. My problem is, do you think there needs to be a couple roster changes? Obviously we all know about the point guard issues. That has been stressed by everybody. That has been seen by everybody. But when you have 2 players who truly are centers, now I see them at the 4. I see NZ and I see Ishmael Sanogo. Those are 2 guys on the floor at the same time that can't shoot outside the paint. There's another guy. We all know Angel Delgado. He is a monster on the boards. He is a monster getting the ball inside the paint. He can't shoot from the outside either. Then our point guards have a problem with handling the ball by itself. What do they need to do? Do you need to see more Miles Powell in there? Do you need to see some Javon Thomas? We didn't even see it, the court yesterday at all. What do they need to do to have a difference in this year?
Bryant, I think a big part of it is Kadeen Carrington. I think going into this season, a lot of people pinned him as the guy on this Pirates team. And, I pulled a little Ron Jaworski this week, studying some tape from last season and this year. And I just don't see that much of an improvement from Carrington. At the beginning of the non-conference season, he was leading the team in points. You mentioned it, over 20 points a game. He's dropped down to just over 16 points a game. He's really been well below average in the conference season. So for Kadeen Carrington, I think he's a complimentary player, a starting player, but I don't think that you could put him as the linchpin of a team, and I think that's the problem. He's not a point guard, and he's not a player who I think you can rely on as your number 1 or 2 option.
Exactly. I mean, when you look at Kadeen, he's getting pinned, and he has all the pressure of being a leading scorer, of being like the captain for this team. And what I'm seeing, you're saying, what do they need to do? They need to have consistency from every single scorer. And I'm talking about the 3 scorers they have right now on their team: Desi, Kadeen, and Miles.
And you saw that yesterday. Desi wasn't consistent at all yesterday. He came in a little bit hot at the end of the game, but he was cold for the majority of the game right there, and that was a big issue. Now I am going to ask you, I do want to talk about Madison Jones a little bit at the end. Just super quick about that. What do you guys both think? Yes or no? Did Madison Jones have a fantastic defensive game? And if that holds up, can that make a big difference in the year? Yes or no?
I believe so.
I think that defensively, don't think it's going to go a long way. I think other players have to step up defensively.
Okay, and also, do you think Miles Powell should see way more minutes and maybe even find his way into the starting role this year? Yes or no?
When he's on a hot streak, definitely yes.
And the answer is he won't be, so no, he's playing just enough.
But I think as a freshman, he's been doing an outstanding job. I mean, he's averaging 11 points per game. You can't expect too much out of him, but I believe that in the second half, we saw a hot streak. I mean, he hit a 3 right by the X in the Xavier in the half court. It was ridiculous.
Oh, I know. Well, taking things to a little bit on the lighter side of things going on with Seton Hall basketball this year. The women's team having a bit of a struggle in the beginning of the year. Hey, we said 2 big wins need to happen. They need to beat Xavier. They need to beat Butler. Guess what? They came out and they won both those games. Off in some fashion, too, by the way. Any comments about the games, guy?
Yeah, I think that this women's team has definitely showed that they've improved, they've matured this season. We've seen players step up. I'm thinking about, obviously, Kayla Hilaire is an obvious option. Letitia Smith has really stepped into a leadership role. Jaquan Jackson has shown what she can do. But I'm talking about even Deja Winters, who stepped up. Shadeen Samuels, Jayla Jones-Pack. All these players have really just taken their game to another level. And it started really with that Creighton game. You're playing a team that was receiving votes in the top 25, and you're able to take them to overtime. Really, you should have won. And you finish that home stretch 3-1. You mentioned it before, they're probably not going to be able to climb themselves back into contention, but it's a season to build off of, and they've shown what they can do going forward.
Here's the thing, they're growing. I mean, they really are growing. And James said, as he said, they were 3-1 in that stand that they had. But I want to just talk about defensive basketball because that, in reality, that really wins the games for basketball. They held last week against Xavier, a team that they lost to pretty badly in early January. They held leading scorer Rayshon Gaffney for Xavier to 10 points. About a month ago, she had 33 points for them when they beat the Pirates. They're definitely growing. Do I think this is the season where you can say they're going to make a run in the Big East tournament when you have teams like Marquette, when you have teams like DePaul, who are just really, they click. And when you look at Kwani Jackson, she's not consistent enough right now, but they're definitely clicking. You can see it in their play. They're on a 2-game winning streak. We're going to have to see this week. This is a big weekend for them with Marquette, number 3 in the conference, and then they go to DePaul, and they're number 1 in the conference. So we'll see what happens.
Well, with the momentum coming up and all that good stuff happening with them, they had 2 big wins as we just saw. Do they lack too much senior experience for them to go on something this year? Do they really need to have a good tournament run, and do they really need to have a strong end of conference? Because does this team have enough time to make the dance this year now?
No, I don't think the dance is really something that this team is shooting for. They're just building off of each game, and it shows. I think that every game they're getting better. And I think that down the stretch, it's sort of flipped to what the men's team has. A lot of road games and a lot of tough road games, but at the same time, this team is going to grow game by game. And I don't think it's a lack of experience. I just think it's a team that really needs to get those games under them, because I think once they get them, they're going to be ready to go.
Yeah, they just need experience. They just need to click. I completely agree with James. They just, players like KK Allaire, Deja Winters, even Jayla Jones-Pack, they've all grown this season as freshmen, and it's a lot of fun to watch. Same with T.T. Smith. Kwani Jackson, she's going to be the player they're going to have to rely on. They need to rely on a consistency from her. She's averaging 15.4 points per game. She's one of the top scorers in the Big East right now. But she can't have, against Xavier, 29 minutes of action with only 9 points. You can't have that happen.
Last point, guys. Last point right now. Who do they build off of the rest of this year? Do they build off of Hilaire or do they build off of Jackson? One name, go.
It's the whole team effort. You can't just put it down to one player. I mean,
Okay.
of those 2, you're going to build off Jackson because she's the veteran, but I think the whole team is building right now.
I think you have to build off the point guard, KK Allaire. I know she's a freshman, but she's been doing outstanding these past couple of games.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for everything. All right, Pirate fans, thank you so much for everything tonight. You heard it here at Hall Talk First. Thank you again. I'll see you next Thursday.